Winning!
Hello everyone, this is Piero and Giorgio, author of Survive the Economic Collapse, and today I'm very happy to have on my show Terrence Popp. Terrence, good morning.
Good morning, nice to be here. Sorry about the fall through last week, but my lost power and everything went crazy here. So.
Well, I hope we are not going to lose power today, because on my side, as some people may see, we have a big storm just now. So it happens. Even in Switzerland, we have storms now. So, and it's June. It's June 15th. We should not have such big storms yet. Anyways, I'm very happy to have you on the show. As I was just saying, I've been discovering your show for maybe the last year, and I think I've watched all of your videos, and they're both informative, very smart, and very funny. And on two big topics, which I wanted to interview you today. One is your personal experience in life, especially in the military and your tours in Iraq. And the other one is women and men-women relationships. I'm sure that interests some people. So maybe to start, can you tell us a little bit? I see behind you have weapons. You've been a soldier all your life. You said, right?
Yeah, I went in the Army at 17, but I started training in the martial arts around 12 or 13 years old. I pretty much knew where I was going to wind up, because I wasn't really good in school. And I was the guy that they looked at and they said, college isn't for everyone. So I went in the Army and, I got, they kicked the shit out of me and put me on the straight and narrow, and literally changed my entire life for the better. So that's pretty much it.
So you tell on your channel a little bit your parcours, your story within the Army. So you've been to Special Forces, right?
Yeah, I'm a Green Beret, Airborne Ranger, Airborne Paratrooper, Infantry Soldier. I did all of that stuff. I think I was on jump status for 22 years.
So people should not shit with you.
Well, I don't know. In the military, they teach you hand-to-hand, but they teach you just enough so you can get your ass kicked. So on a side note, I decided that if I was going to walk this road as a warrior, that I should really learn how to do it properly. So, in between wars out of boredom, I competed as a professional kickboxer and worked my way all the way up to a shot at a world title, the FFKA, and I believe that was in February of 2000 or maybe December of 99, somewhere in there. But I lost. I lost by TKO. I was cut too bad to continue in the 10th round, but it's okay because he shattered my ribs in the second, but it didn't seem right to quit.
So speaking of being hurt, you're by the way, all my friends in the Swiss Army, I've convinced them all to watch your channel especially for the stories of your tours in Iraq and the deployments there. And if you can summarize a little bit what of course you've been to Iraq. Can you tell us a little bit more about the condition of that?
Okay, first of all, that country is a complete shithole. Complete. And a lot of people don't. They'll call me an Islamophobe for saying this, but that place is swimming in pedophiles. They rape kids all the time, mainly boys. That place is terrible, and I don't even know how they live.
You mean
I really don't.
More than in Afghanistan?
I think it goes along with the culture. I personally have never been to Afghanistan, but I have talked to hundreds of guys that have gone and came back, and I trained people to go there and do their deal, and they all had horror stories of the same thing about that. And if you even mention that here in the Western world, You know, you're an Islamophobe. You know, somehow I'm afraid of them. I just saw them in their natural environment, and I know how that stuff works, and I don't want to come in here. That's just me, though.
I for many other reasons, I agree. But so America deployed in Iraq following 9/11. At the time, you were eager to go. You were thinking this was a good idea.
To be honest, I mean, I'd been to war before.
Uh-huh.
A lot of my guys were all happy, like, "Yay, we're going to war!" And I actually had to sit them all down at the bar and go, "Hey, if we see serious action, I want you to look to your left and right, because when we come back, either you or one of them will not be here." And that took everyone down from like yay number 10 to a number 2, because you know I made it real for them, and that's the way it should be. It's not a party. It's not a vacation or an adventure. In most cases, when you go to war, it's your life's greatest nightmare.
Now, knowing what we know, I guess we all know now about the supposed weapons of mass destruction, and as you said, Iraq was probably a better country before we went in. You still think America should have gone or not?
Well, you know, historically, when you look back 2020, virtually every war that's ever taken place happened for some superficial, dumb reasons. I mean, let's be honest. But, you know, I was in the profession of arms, and if the 30-pound brained individuals way up above me said, "Hey, that we're going," then I'm packing my stuff and I'm going. And when I go there, I'm going to win. I'm going to come back alive and bring as many of my people home with me that I possibly can. Now, you know, as regards to the chemical weapons, my unit actually confiscated a truck which was moving down one of the main MSRs towards Fallujah, and it took place about 2 or 3 weeks before the main Fallujah assault took place, the first one. And in the back of that truck, there was a pallet of VX nerve agent rounds, the old African 152s, and there were several 155s. Now, I don't know if they were still viable. I don't know if they would have worked, because they have to be stored in a very certain way. And I'm pretty sure that Saddam did not store his weapons correctly because, you know, let's face it, 2/3 to 1/2 of the year, it's over 100 degrees there.
Yeah.
But the stuff is still incredibly dangerous, even if it is technically inactive. And we confiscated the truck. We brought it through the walls into Abu Ghraib, parked it out as far away as we could from any buildings, and we called the EOD to come and get it. And when they showed up, they literally put tape around the thing. It sat there for 3 or 4 weeks until they got the proper people in there to take those particular rounds out of there safely. And then EOD took the whole truck out, like in the middle of this open, it's like a big desert, I guess, and just blew everything up. But, you know, they were there, but I don't think they were there in the numbers that was reported up to the president, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Now of course on your deployment in Iraq, and again I will put the links of your channel, because you tell a lot of stories with a lot of details. There is a lot of motivational and how you manage people in difficult conditions, because I presume that you have rules and then you have reality, and it doesn't always match.
Oh, no. Like, managers and business people, you know, they're the ones that work in, you know, strictly in reality. Yeah, that's how that works. When you go to war, there's a line there that you cross over where it's no longer a business. So you cannot lead and manage soldiers. I mean, you can't manage and manage soldiers like you will somebody working on an assembly line. You have to lead them. Okay, and I wrote a book about this called "The Warrior's Way and the Soldier's Soul," It's on Kindle, and basically it's a book that teaches you how to prepare for war, how to conduct war, and then how to live with it when you return. But yeah, I mean, there was a lot of times where things were getting crazy, and all the other soldiers, they weren't looking at the commander, they were looking at me, because I'd already been to war. By the time that happened, I was in the Company F425, Long Range Reconnaissance Airborne Infantry. I'd already been Special Forces qualified. I already did two and a half or 2+ years in the Ranger Battalion with a combat tour. I had a long history as a platoon sergeant, and a lot of the soldiers that were with me, I've known them since they were 18 years old and walked them through the whole thing. So, they would have done whatever I told them to do, but they probably, they were hesitant of what the commander would say, because, in all honesty, in my professional opinion, he was incompetent.
Now, America is still present in Afghanistan, in Iraq, and in many, many other countries. So that's the longest war the U.S. has ever been.
Yes, it is.
Do you think it's still worth it to be there?
To be honest with you, I would say no. There are soldiers that are coming into the military now that were alive when 9/11 went down. Okay, now, when you go to deployment, when you go to a war zone, to survive, you have to be able to shut off certain things. Okay? Whenever you step into the door of oblivion, if you even want a prayer of returning, you can take nothing with you. You can't even take the love of God. You can not take your wife, nothing, because when you need to be on point and totally 100% focused to survive, and you're thinking about something else, you could die.
Yeah.
So when you go into and out of war zones that many times, and you're switching your mentality, a lot of these guys, after sometimes it happens after 1, 2, anything beyond 3 tours, you never switch your mind back. You just stay there forever, and that's very, very detrimental to a person's mind and his life and his pursuit of happiness down the road, because the Army's going to keep going. You're going to get left behind, and nobody's going to give a damn. So
we're not monetized in this channel.
That's okay.
we can curse. It's fine. So yeah. Because I asked this because it's really very interesting. As I was in Iraq in 2005 as a civilian contractor for helping set up the databases of computers for the election in Nasiriyah in the south. Because I speak Italian, so it was easy to work with the local Italian guys. And I agree with you; it's a shithole. And although it was okay in my area, but it's not a country you want to go for holidays in the last 20 years.
Nope. And when I got there was at the end of 2003, and we were there for all of 2004, and that's when the insurgency, was getting up to full steam.
Yeah.
And and my guys were on Abu Ghraib prison right after that whole torture thing came out. So we were getting mortared 3 to 5 times a day. We were dealing with, sniper fire, rockets being fired into the buildings, all that crap. And then, in the beginning of the deployment, I was the sergeant in charge of security for the entire post. So my plate was full. I had to deal with so much crap. And then later on, after the first sergeant that we deployed with got fired and sent home from war for bigotry and troop abuse, they made me the first sergeant.
Yeah. Now, the U.S. Army has a reputation of, on one side, being an incredibly powerful machine of death and destruction, and on the other side, an incredibly bureaucratic, PowerPoint-heavy rule intensive bureaucracy.
Oh yeah.
How can that work together? I mean,
it's tough. It's tough. Well, first of all, because I spent so much time in that crazy world, I acquired a black belt in administrative violence. And I went head to head with my commander, the battalion commander, the brigade commander, because I used their very own bureaucracy against them, not to stop missions or to be disrespectful, but when you call people up, from the National Guard, I mean, these people give up their lives.
Yeah.
They literally go, and they tell their employers they'll be gone for a year. They kiss their wives. They kiss their children. They pack up their stuff, and you go to a war zone. And for whatever reason, the active army hates National Guard people and treats them like shit. Like literally, when we showed up there, we're like the whipping boy lackeys for the battalion commander. My guys were working 16 hours, 7 days a week. While the battalion we were working under, their guys were working 8 hours a day, 5 days a week. And I went up there and complained a couple times. And they just basically said, they gave me north and south, well, we're in a war zone, and that's just the way it's going to be. I literally had to go look up the regulations, look up for the 88 mics who are military truck drivers and how much sleep they need and how many miles they can log. And I had to write up an official IG complaint on the DA form 1559. And, out of courtesy for my chain of command, before I filed that, I walked it up there and put it on the sergeant major's desk. And I said, "Sir Major, I've come to you several times for this complaint about you're working my men too hard. If something isn't done by tomorrow morning, I'm jumping on the log pack to go to victory, and I'm going to file this IG complaint, and a lot of people are going to get fucked." So the next day, my guys were down to working 12 hours a day, 5 days a week, which I could accept.
Yeah, it's spreading in all the armies of the world, at least in the West, for sure.
And that's probably one of the other reasons I was invited to retire is I don't do political correctness.
Yeah.
And everyone was pulling their hair out because I would just tell them straight up. I'm like, this is fucked up. You did it completely wrong. If I was in charge, this is the way I would do it. And they would get all offended and upset instead of listening to a guy who is way more experienced than them and say, "Yeah, you're right. Yeah, I screwed the pooch on this. I'm not going to do that again." They get all mad and angry about it.
Yeah, because in the end, it impacts, right, the combat effectiveness and the life of soldiers.
Yes.
And I don't know what you think about soon we're going to have LGBT battalions in the army. So how's that gonna be in when real wars happen, because they always happen eventually.
If America locks horn with a nation with similar technology and equipment, it's going to be a bloodbath for us. Because, it's not a sport.
No.
In a sport, you fuck up, they score some points, you go home, you feel bad, you drink a beer, whatever. In a war, you die. Or you get parts of your body blown off. And if you are not at that combat standard, you're going to pay the combat price, which is blood and death. And your the people who are behind you, the civilians, they eventually suffer from that, right? They get enslaved, they get converted by force and things like that. Yeah.
Now you've been wounded in Iraq
several times.
Yeah.
Well, I've been injured many times, wounded in combat twice.
And so, hence coming back to the U.S. and what led you to the second part of what? Well, first of all, how do you see the world going? I mean, because obviously you're not a very politically correct guy, which is a good point, and and obviously you are into the forefront in the US, like we are in Europe, of this change of society, change of civilization that is taking place, which is, well, I don't want to say my opinion here, but how do you see this going?
Well, I don't know about in your country, but here in America, I see it going down a path towards a civil war. I am not going to lie. I mean, you know, they're already censoring, you know, the right on YouTube.
Yeah.
They pretty much have, you know, charged the Democratic Party, and if you're not allowed to do civil discourse or seek relief in court, historically, and this is a fact, it falls down to violence. And I'm not threatening that, you know, I'm not saying
that, yeah.
do that or anything. I'm just saying, as a Green Beret, I have studied war and counterinsurgencies for decades. And if you track a counterinsurgency back to its very beginnings, that's where it starts.
Now, how is the civil war going to play out when on one side you have all the people that have all the guns, and on the other side you have people in the cities who don't have any guns and any force? I mean, and yet they want to censor, and they want to dominate, and they want to crush the whole country. I mean, it makes no sense to me. What are they thinking?
Yeah, I mean, I did a video about this, and to explain why people think this way. Here in America, you live behind the safety of 5 fences. You have your house, and around your house you have your city police. Then you have your county police. And then you have the state police. And then you have the federal police. And the last line is the military. So we live in this super safe world where they pipe in a bunch of elevator music from the left, which they want you to hear and listen to. And they do it so much that you actually believe it. That is a recipe for, I mean, historically, if you ignore reality, you do so at your peril.
Yeah. I agree.
Yeah.
Now
that's how we got here. That's how we got here.
This is why, yeah, sorry.
A lot of guys on the right who've been in the military, who went beyond, who served on the 5th fence, went all over the world and said, hey, you know, America's nothing like this. This place is a shithole compared to where I fucking grew up. You know, wow. And then they go back and then they hear on the news like how everyone's saying America's so terrible and we're dictators and we're doing all this horrible stuff. And I'm like, well, that is not what's happening at all. I mean, do you realize if we stopped sending AIDS drugs to Africa, in 20 years, their population would be almost gone?
Yeah, of course. I worked there.
Yeah. It would. They would literally be gone.
On the other hand, we bring them over here by the millions every year.
I know. That needs to stop. You know, I am not a fan of immigration, the way that they're doing it. You know, I'm a firm believer. If you want to come here to America, you do like everyone else. You stand in line. You put your name on the list. And when they ask you, do you have anything of value to contribute, have a skill. Because I don't need you coming here going back on welfare. We have enough people in poverty right now. No need to pump in more. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
And that's strictly an economic reason based on logic and reason. Okay, and you know, the liberals get upset. You know, oh, what about their feelings? They're gonna die. And I'm like, listen, the world's a terrible place. I didn't ask to be here, nor did I have a hand in building in this world. I just have to live in it. There you go.
Now, one of the and that leads me to what I wanted to ask before, but it wasn't the right time. Now it is. When you get back to the US, like many of us, at some point you get red pilled on one of the fundamental, I think we all agree on that, fucks up of the current world is that the relationships between men and women have been completely destroyed from what it worked before, from what worked before. And you are making lots of videos. They are humorous videos. They are really entertaining, but they have this element of fundamental truth that women are not playing by the rules anymore.
Nope. Nope. Well, the turning point for me was when I got divorced. I mean, I used to own a business. I made a lot of money. I've a decorated soldier. Was by that point had 3 wars under my belt. Purple Heart, CIB, all of the bells and whistles. I had a top secret clearance, and I had one for 20 years. And every 7 years, they climb up your ass with a microscope and investigate your ass. So if there was any dirt on me, if I had done anything bad, there would be a record of it. And I went into family court, and they proceeded to refer to me as a murderer and an assassin. And they used my wounds, which I'd received in combat, as an excuse to take my children away.
Because
and I was,
as a Green Beret, you're a violent guy.
Oh, I can be.
Exactly.
I can be.
It's
I
amazing,
mean, literally, in my mind, I was just like, you know what? I'm going to come back here, and I'm going to tomorrow morning. This building is going to fall into its imprint. I was so mad, but I mean, I realized that I could do that stuff, but it really wouldn't change anything. And if I really wanted to go to war with these people, I had to do so using psychological operations, because you're not going to do it by force.
Mm-hmm.
So I started secondclasscitizen.org, and I made a few videos. I made a suicide video. It was very powerful, won a couple of awards at some film festivals. But I just couldn't keep doing the depression. I mean, it's so depressing. And most people, when they see something that's very depressing, they usually shut off after a while, because it's just a natural protection thing,
mm-hmm.
For your mind. So then I decided, you know what, I'll do something else. Maybe I'll use comedy. And so I searched for the domains of redonkulous.com and found it, and I got the domain.
So what does it mean, by the way?
Redonkulous basically means if it's wrong and ridiculous, it's redonkulous, and it's open game.
Oh, okay.
And I don't just rip on women, though. I mean, you go through some of my videos, I rip on a lot of stupid shit.
Yeah.
And that's just basically how that happened. And one of the motivating factors was I remember I had called Chris. I tried to call Chris Rock and a couple other comedians that are going through divorces or actors who've been fucked over by the system. And they have like this network of people around them. You can never get to them. And one of them just said, you know what? Fuck off. If you think this is so important, then you become a star and do it yourself. And I was just like, how hard can it fucking be? I'm already a Green Beret. I did all that. I can do this. Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. I just basically gave him the fucking bird. And I'm like, I'll fucking, hey, look, this is a war. I'll see you on the battlefield.
Yeah, and you describe a lot of, and again, it's very funny. But you describe some of the real truth that today's culture, media, and really wants to keep away, and actually this makes women extremely unhappy. I mean, not what you say, I get probably, but I mean the current environment we're in the end fucks women up and makes them really unhappy, and they end up dying alone, eaten by their cats, as I always say. And I say
the same thing.
Yeah, I heard. We analyze this. It's not even an analysis; it's an observation, right? Of well, this is what's happening.
It doesn't require a lot of thought. You're like, wow, no, you're going to wind up dying alone. See you later.
Yeah, it's a crazy world, and they've had this thing. I wrote a book on feminism, by the way. So So they got convinced at the beginning that equality was a great idea, like 100 years ago, and voting was a great idea, and then today it's total domination and total enslavement of men for their benefit. But it's not going to happen because
no, it's not,
because men go away.
You know, I'm a firm believer in this. Feminism has won. I want them to get all of the same and equal rights as a man, and I want them to get all of the same and equal lefts, because life is a fight. Before they had the rights, there was a man standing in front of them that took the rights and lefts. They didn't have to deal with that. Now I want them to get the full burrito. I want them to swing the 80-pound sledgehammers. I want to see them walking up around our roofs, tearing off shingles. I want to see them on the assembly line, lifting transmissions up for 8 hours a day, you know, stacking wood, you know, digging for coal. I want to see them doing all the same jobs men do.
Yeah, but no, they don't want that.
If they don't want that because they want special treatment. That's special treatment right there.
Yesterday was a march for women's rights, whatever, in all over the world, in every city, and I look around and I see people working indeed on the construction sites, in the mine shafts. No woman. They want quotas, but they don't want quotas for that. They don't ask for quotas in the mine shafts. They want quotas for the high-paid jobs. So it's a scam. Yes. It's a scam, and most men, because they're white knights, they fall for it and they say they go for it, which is insane. So sometimes the problem is not really the woman; it's also us, right? It's the men.
Yes, I mean, men have an instinct within them to protect and provide for women. It's hard to get around, you know. And a lot of guys will keep this up till they die, and then there's guys like me who they force fed me the red pill and opened my eyes, and I was like, holy shit, this is insane.
Now one of the problems is that a society that becomes very weak for all this political correctness and because of the relations between man and woman are fucked up. Now, usually when this happens in history, and I think you and I share a passion of the study of history, when usually this happens, the societies collapse. And
just like Rome.
Exactly. And I wrote my first book, which is a bestseller, talks about the collapse of societies. But I must say I did not put that element in. I talked about the lack of the problem with energy supplies, the supply chains falling down, but I didn't think that was 10 years ago. I didn't think that the political correctness thing and the relationship between men and women could actually be the trigger or a trigger for the collapse of civilization, because a weak civilization cannot withstand the barbarian hordes which are already in the city. We don't even have the hordes in front of Rome; they're already in, and yes. The socialists, the left, is tearing down whatever wall is left. And how do you see this playing out in the next few years?
Well, I hope it doesn't happen, but like I said, it's going to wind up in a bloodbath.
Yeah. Well, so what should we do about that?
Well, I myself, I'm trying to get a piece of land that's away from the city and setting up my own, food, caching some stuff, arms and equipment, and I'm hoping I can ride it out, but chances are, guys like me, when it gets really crazy, either we pick a side or we get killed.
So
that's probably what will happen.
So you are you know the prepper and survivalist movements, these ideas, etc.
Yeah.
How do you tune it for yourself? Okay, you mentioned some. So I presume you have not read my book, but that's okay. I will make sure you get one. But okay. The strategy of survival, whether you're in special forces or a civilian, has to be thought beforehand. You can improvise, but if you improvise 100%, it's going to be tough, right?
Improvisation is like a last-ditch effort thing.
Yeah.
Like
Exactly.
in Special Forces, we used to do a escape and evasion plan, and we'd set up an evasion corridor, and it would be, however long it took to get to an ocean or to another country or somewhere where we can lay low until we can get picked up.
Exactly.
So, once I have that piece of property, then I have to build my escape and evasion plan to get me and my 2 kids and get us from point A to point B, where at the back end we can lay low and hide out. So
Exactly.
and that requires a vehicle, a piece of property, and the property needs big enough to grow some food on for 3 to 5 people, which is usually anywhere from 3 to 5 acres.
Yeah.
And you need a water source, the whole deal.
Yeah.
So I do that too. And then, it wouldn't hurt if I could get the property ahead of time and then cache some stuff up there underground, bury it in case I need it. And then if it gets really bad, I have to make my way up there and dig it up.
Sure, because indeed the escape and evasion is not how you win a war. It's a contingency plan, as you said, as a last ditch. So what you describe, to have a sort of homestead away from the city, is exactly what I describe in my books. By the way, it's how you do that, how you build it up. Probably I don't have the same perspective as you, because my background is very different from the military one that you have. But certainly, at the end, the conclusion is the same. You need to have a place that is relatively safe, in a safe area of the country, probably with a good neighborhood, even if it's a very little neighborhood, very small number. But if it's a place that you're far away from the shit that is inevitably, well, if you believe that scenario, I do, hit the proverbial fan.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, it's crazy. I hope it doesn't happen. I hope we're able to steer away from this. But I don't know. And on the back end, if we see a back end, a few things that will need to take place to keep it from happening again is all of these professors and teachers that have been teaching all this liberal garbage need to go. Either we box them up and send them to another country, put them in an internment camp, or just make sure they never work in that field again.
But they are paid in part by your taxes, because a lot of these professors are funded by the government.
That is correct, and that will need to come to a screeching halt, and then you cut off the welfare, and then that'll force men and women to come together.
Sure.
Because women want to go along. If they want to, do it on themselves, then that's fine. You're going to get the same answer I'm going to give a man. Handle your shit. You got 2 kids? Handle your shit. Go get a job. Go figure it out. No more free shit from the government. And
you're and the United States is a country where, when you say to someone get a job, it used to be the only way, but it was the land of opportunity. It was really, really great. Today, with all these protected government-funded fields, not only you can't find a job, but they profile you before you can get the job. So if you want to be a professor in the universities today and you're not a leftist, there's no chance in hell that you get the job. They won't hire you.
Not today. No. On the back end, after enough people were killed in the bloodbath, people are like, you know what? This is what led to that. That's going to change.
Yeah.
Listen, I don't have a problem with people being liberal.
Sure.
I'm a conservative, and I understand that sometimes the people on the left, they have good ideas. I should not.
Maybe. I don't know. I never heard of one, but
liberal.
Sure.
Wisdom is wisdom, no matter where it comes from.
I agree. They should be able to tell their story for sure. But
right now it's out of balance.
But you see,
when something is out of balance, it's going to burn in.
I'm sure you'd agree that usually the liberals, not all of them, but the people in charge, they don't think the way you just described. They don't want you to speak. They're not for equal opportunity to speak out, and then a marketplace of ideas figures out which idea is works and which idea is great, like it used to be. Mm-hmm. They want to put you and me in the gulag, maybe with a bullet in our heads, because we don't think the way they want us to think. So they're not. We're not playing the same game with them as they do.
No. Hey, and that's why sooner or later, if it doesn't change, it's gonna get bad. Because
you've traveled. You think liberals had a chance in Iraq?
No.
Under Saddam, I mean, he kept the country tight.
That's right. I mean, literally in Abu Ghraib prison, the numbers were somewhere between 750,000 to 1.2 million people went into that camp and never returned.
Yeah.
That place is stupid haunted.
Yeah, and it was a socialist movement. Saddam Hussein was a kind of a socialist, the Ba'athist system. I'm sure a lot of Russian people can tell us a lot of stories about how it was under the socialist system of the East. And Chinese the same. And the list goes on and on and on. Every time it has been. The Nazis were socialists.
But the thing they're using over here is democratic socialism.
Yeah, right.
Get out of here. You're just hiding it behind another word. Mm. It's never worked. It's never going to work. Because at our core, humans are greedy, evil, hairless monkeys.
Some more hairless than others. But now, for things to change, now, one concerns we have in Europe, and I'm sure many Americans are starting to think this way, is that with people from, let's say, that are coming in our countries, both in Europe and the US, that are coming from countries where they rely on the state. They like to get money from the state. So basically they vote left. As more and more people come by the millions, and they get nationality, they get the papers, they can vote, and they're going to be more numerous than the natives, which we are, in about 1 or 2 election cycles. If we don't change these things very fast, it's not going to change. At least not democratically.
No. I think we're beyond fixing it democratically, to be honest with you. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's where we are. That's the truth. That's the rubber hitting the road right there.
So can you confirm to our listeners and viewers that we've never talked before? No. So we guys who are listening to us, there will be war.
I haven't even read your book.
No, I've been telling this for 10 years. There's going to be war, and unfortunately, we need to be prepared for it. We don't wish it. We only wanted to be happy, play video games, and get our dick sucked. But no, we were going to have war, and this is, I don't know, what year were you born?
I was born in 1986.
1986, so you're younger than me.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, I'm from 71. I don't know. I've been promised, you've probably been promised, spaceships, travel to the moon, travel to the space, and I've been promised to, okay, I was also promised nuclear war, but clearly the world should have been fantastic, and no, instead we have shitholes coming, people from shitholes coming here and turning our countries like in shitholes. I'm not saying that individually they're bad, but the dynamic makes it so. And instead of making their countries better, we're just turning ours into something that is not working anymore.
That's correct.
And our dreams of the year 2000 and world peace and all that, of course, it was a dream, but it turns into a nightmare. And yeah.
Yeah, you are correct. Yeah, and I have 2 kids. I don't want this to happen.
No, I have 4. I don't want that either.
Yeah, but the people running the show need to go.
Yeah, exactly, and they will go one way or the other. Now, I live in Switzerland. Do you know a little bit about Switzerland?
A little bit.
A little bit. Now we have a tradition of being armed citizen. We don't have a standing army, but everyone is like in the National Guard. If you can take a similar approach. And recently we had our gun laws have become more strict for us. Do you see this happening in your country as well? There is attempts to take guns away from people?
Yes. That's a bad idea.
Yeah. And speaking of which, is it why do you think women are the most voting against that?
Yeah, because the women are voting against that because guns are killing their children, but at the same time, they're aborting so many fetuses. They're creating a silent genocide, which is probably the greatest in all of human history.
Yeah, I can imagine the issue that this gun control thing that we see is that, first of all, I think it's whether you believe in God or not, it's not even it's a natural right for people will defend themselves whatever happens if they are put under pressure. If you're mugged, okay, maybe if they just want some money, maybe you give them money and that's it. But you will have this instinct to defend yourself, whether it's with your hands, whether it's with whatever tool or means that you have, right?
Correct.
Now, having guns is not just to defend yourself, is also a way to protect the freedom of the city, of the citizens, because it's not about shooting the burglar. This is what people never understand. Having guns is to get rid of tyranny. It's to get rid of the dictators. It's not about shooting the burglars because that's irrelevant. But it's not just crime. It's not just protecting you and your family. It's protecting you and your civilization. And so the only conclusion is people who want to get rid of guns, of people with guns, is because they want to kill our civilization. Or
pretty
what?
much. Or they want to weaken the civilian populace to the point where they can do whatever they want and there will be no resistance.
So we are becoming like Iraq was.
Yeah. And we saw how well that worked out for them now, didn't it?
Yeah, how fun it was with the rape rooms and the stuff going around. Yeah,
that's crazy. Yeah, in the one place I was staying in Abu, they had a wood chipper. There's no trees in Iraq. What were they doing with that?
Yeah, I can imagine. I can imagine. No,
that was horrid.
And I'm sure you visited. I worked in Africa for several years. I'm sure you've traveled around. And Iraq is not the only place where this was going on. This is going on in many places, around the world. And you know, again, people my age and of my father's age, when he was alive, we were told when we were kids, you know, America was this. It was the savior of the world. You know, they came in 1944, 1945 to Europe. And they brought a lot of great things. And today we are importing from America these political correct ideas. These crazy women with crazy colored hair and these bizarre ideas, and they want to have quotas for whatever minority, handicap, sexual preference, whatever. And it's just a nuisance at best. And it makes no sense, and we still cannot understand why this is coming.
I'm trying to figure it out too. You know, the LGBTQWTF community only makes up like 1/3 of 1% of our total population.
Exactly.
We are alienating 99.87% of everyone else for that. That is stupid. It is stupid. Now, my heart goes out to them.
Sure. I don't care.
No, listen to this. Okay. The way I look at it, it is the cruelest practical joke that the universe can play on a person. You come from energy. You're conceived. You actually stick to the side of the uterus and you start growing. You make it all the way through the 9 months without, you know, growing an arm out of your forehead or something like that. And then you survive birth. And then you survive this long, tumultuous childhood where you don't know shit. And at any given time, you could wind up starving, diseased, or dead. And then you get to the age of about 14, 15, 16, and you realize you're orbiting Venus, but you have a Mars lander in your shuttle bay. That's terrible. That's terrible. I feel bad for them, but I am not going to participate in their delusion. I'm 50. I can't go around telling everyone I'm 75 and I want Social Security because I identify as a 75-year-old man. They're going to be like, yeah, F off. You're 50. You don't get, any benefits till 62.
Mm.
But some guy who was born a man, has XY chromosomes, just says, oh, I feel like I'm a woman today. And now all of a sudden we treat them like they're an actual woman. That, I'm sorry, I'm a logical person, and I cannot buy into that. I just can't.
Now, women in sports seem to very soon not be able to win any game anymore.
And that blows the feminist argument out of the water that anything you can do, I can do better.
Yeah, we start to see women being beaten up on TV on MMA fights by men in reality. It's
savaged. Yep, they just get savaged.
It's paradoxal, and I hear there is a women football, that's soccer, championship, and the winners from 4 years ago, the Brazilian team, were beaten constantly when they toured and played against junior clubs of men. So the level of stamina, physical prowess. Hey, I mean, we're not built the same way. We're not supposed to function the same way, and we're supposed to go die wrestling with bears in the wild, and they're supposed to take care of kids, and it's difficult. Both jobs are difficult. When we switch, I had 4 kids, and I took care of a lot of my kids, and it's fucking boring. I hated it, and it's hard. But okay, I had to do it. But it's I'd rather wrestle bears, but it's wrestling bears is fucking dangerous too. I'm only 200 pounds. The bear can rip my head off, maybe, or maybe the other way around. I don't know if I'm lucky and skilled. But this exchanging roles, it's nonsense. We are different, and it's great. I mean, I like to fuck women, not men, because we're different. Thank God we're different. Yeah.
Look, like there's a big difference between a 140-pound male soldier and a 140-pound female soldier. That 140-pound, 18-year-old young soldier who's a male, I can stick 60 pounds on his back. I could build up his endurance so he can walk 12 miles in 3 hours or less, and then dig a fighting position at the end, go without food, go without sleep, climb ropes, walk through swamps, and I can make him do that every single day, because that's how war is. Okay, a woman, she might be able to do the 12-mile road march in 3 hours. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Will she be able to dig that fighting position after that? Will she be able to get up the next morning and do the same thing over and over again until you die, get wounded, or hostilities cease? I don't think so.
Yeah, it's a long discussion because, I don't know if you read this great book called Pussycats by Israeli historian Martin van Krevel. He's an acquaintance of mine, and he's giving the perspective of women in the military, and even in countries like today Israel, they're not in fighting roles. They're kept into other roles. And of course they are at war. They are constantly at war. Or for example, even when in the Soviet Union, when they had lots of women even in combat units, first of all they kept the women separate from men in the combat units because they knew that men do crazy shit when there are women around. But also they had roles like aircraft pilots or snipers. Women actually shoot pretty well, as I'm sure you know, but it's separated. You don't want to have a platoon with 28 men and 2 women because that's bad for the platoon survival ability.
It's a recipe for this. Then that means 2 people will have to get thrown down some stairs before we go to combat.
Yeah, true. It's a big problem, and it's a psychological problem as well, because if you fear for these girls to be captured, I mean, if you capture one of your mates, okay, there's only so much damage they can do to him, and then you realize, okay, we have to maybe get him back or not. But if it's a woman, that's another game.
That's bad. Yeah.
It's another game.
And when I was in Iraq, all my men carried 13 magazines, 2 frag hand grenades, their CAR-15, and if they were raided, they carried a pistol and a tomahawk. And my instructions were very simple. One of those hand grenades is for the enemy. If you run out of ammo and you know you're going to get captured, that other hand grenade's for you.
Yeah.
Because I never wanted to see one of my guys on Al Jazeera getting his head sawed off on TV.
Yeah, I agree. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember when they showed that video when we were in Iraq, all my guys were flipping out. They were just freaking out. And for the sake of morale and insanity, I got everyone into one room and I said, listen, what you just saw on that TV, they did you a favor. And they're all like, what are you talking about? I go, because they told you the rules. Now you know the rules. You can never be captured. Ever.
Yeah. I kind of agree. We can only allow capture when it's the same culture. Where, for example, Germans, French, that's okay. But as soon as you have way different culture, you know, remember World War II when Japanese were capturing American soldiers or British soldiers, they killed them.
Cut them up.
Yeah, they killed them or starved them to death or had them work to death. And Japanese are great people. I mean, I love Japan. I love Japanese people. But when you're at war with a culture that is so different, it's tough. You don't want that. You don't want to be prisoners.
I mean, to be honest with you, if I would have been in charge during World War II, I would have dropped 8 nuclear warheads on Japan. That's how much of turbo assholes they were.
Until surrender, of course. I mean, I know I'm a guy who was very against the war in Iraq. I thought from day one that this was a bad idea, and I knew where it would go. However, I have the luxury. First of all, I'm not American. But I'm the luxury to be a civilian, so okay, I can voice but as I understand, if you're a soldier, you don't have the luxury to discuss. You have to follow your order and you have to go. I understand completely. So there's no point, there's no blame in that, by the way. But for sure, when you are at war, you want to win as fast as possible, and if that
get it over with.
Yeah, and this is the other problem is we knew that Afghanistan, anyone who goes in Afghanistan never gets out. It's the graveyard of empires. No, I mean, if the Russians didn't make it, and Russians are fucking brutal, this was a bad idea to get in. And we thought at the time that it would have been going in and get out, but no, still there. And Iraq is the same. I mean, go in, get out, maybe at best, but staying 20 years, almost 20 years.
That's ridiculous.
And now a lot of Iraqis are coming into Europe, turning Sweden and our countries into super funny places, especially for women, because I'm never going to get raped in the streets at night. It's not going to happen. No one wants to rape me, but women, my daughters, they might.
Yeah.
So yeah.
I hope to God that they get that under control, and that's another thing that'll make it go crazy. If enough people get assaulted and your government isn't doing anything about it, sooner or later the people will be like, why are we supporting this government that's not doing anything for us? We're going to form a new government, and then you're going to have a big, huge conflict.
It's starting here in Europe. I still don't understand that. I mean, maybe it's just pure luck, but one day someone is going to rape the wrong girl, the niece or the daughter of a retired special forces guy in the UK, SAS, or in France or in Germany, and this guy and his friends will go apeshit.
Yeah.
And one day this is going to happen.
Yeah, I'd go apeshit.
Yeah, because if and people who have had the right training, I'm not talking the poor guy who takes the knife and goes, and goes on a rampage alone. But the guy who thinks the thing, who understands, and who has the means, and who has the cash, who has, I know some ex-special forces in Europe. They all have hidden stuff around,
yeah.
Away
all it takes is this: have some resources and have the will to do it.
And the
you
plan.
You can figure everything else out.
And and then you plan something that the police is completely overwhelmed, and that no one can, because suddenly you have a problem here and a problem in another country, because the guys know that you don't go to the guy who did the rape. You go above, way above. You go to the politicians, you go to the judges, and then you have a problem that is crashing into, as you said, civil war or
that's called an insurgency.
An insurgency, and you've lived through one in Iraq, because if you put yourself on the Iraqi, of course, no one wants foreigners in your country, and whether your country is a shithole or not, I'm sure we understand that, and that's why you have counterinsurgency, psyops, and all that.
I never really had a lot of ill will for the insurgents, because I understand their motivations. And there were a lot of times where I was in a position where things could have went really bad for some of these insurgents. And I basically just said, nope, we're just going to arrest them, and they're going to the low priority camp. We're not going to have any craziness here. And, and even the guys who wounded me in Iraq, it was a clean hit. I was in a military vehicle, in uniform, and they blew my vehicle up. No innocents were hurt. It was just me and them. Yeah, they hurt me. They got me. But I'm a professional. I would drink tea with them today.
Sure. I completely understand that. But then civil wars are tougher than
they're always brutal.
They're all the worst.
Yeah.
Well, look, thank you very much for your time. Can you tell us what's the website and where people can find your stuff?
Well, you can check out redonkulous.com. It's REDONKULAS.com. Or if you search for redonkulous.com on YouTube, I have 569 videos. I've been doing this for like 6 years. I'll
put the link in the description of the video, and I really encourage everyone that understands English to get. You see, it's entertaining, it's smart, and it's really has an interesting perspective on things. I thank you very much.
And don't watch it around your wives or girlfriends, because it's male-friendly humor.
Yes, I totally agree. But then there's, my girlfriend wants to see Brokeback Mountain. I don't.
Oh God, no! Oh hell no!
Excellent. I see you have a katana behind you. We also have one.
Nice.
Good. No, excellent. Thank you very much for your time, and we'll speak again. Take care.